A very warm welcome to the four pillars of psychological astrology. I'm DL Gordon, the island astrologer, because I live in a beautiful island in Scotland and I'm your teacher through this course. Now, my interest in astrology began in my early 20s, which was quite some time ago, but I didn't take the subject seriously until my late 20s and my first Saturn return hit me like a ton of bricks. I then spent years reading everything I could about it, learning everything I could by myself, and getting my own chart readings regularly. And then about 10 years ago, I decided I wanted to formalise my knowledge. So I enrolled in Liz Green's school, the CPA, and I have my diploma in psychological astrology from John Green's School, MISPA. So I've been a professional astrologer for the past 7 years, and I've now reached the stage where I want to share my knowledge with other people that want to learn this very beautiful subject. And that might be complete beginners. If you know absolutely nothing about this subject at all, you've come to the right place. By the time you get through this course, you'll have a thorough grounding in the subject and know all the basic information that you need. Maybe you're not a complete beginner, maybe you've been studying for yourself, but you want to get a solid base, get back to basics. And again, this course is for you. So welcome everybody, and I'm glad you're here. So let's ask ourselves the question, what is astrology? Well, first of all, I'll tell you what it's not. Every time I tell people that I'm an astrologer, they seem to think I'm some kind of fortune teller or some kind of psychic, which is not the case. For most of us, our first introduction to astrology is through the horoscope column in the newspapers and magazines, which is very entertaining. Who doesn't love it when the horoscope tells you you're going to meet some tall, handsome stranger today? But the thing is, we know logically that that's not really true. We know every Leo in the world does not have the same personality as every other Leo in the world. We know every Leo in the world can't possibly be having the same day. So it's a double-edged sword because it introduces people to astrology, it gives them some recognition to their sign, but logically we know it's not true, and it makes astrology look as if it's something maybe a bit shallow and a bit trivial. So let's have a comparison of the horoscope we would read in the newspaper and the astrology chart you would use in a proper reading. So on the left-hand side, we have a little circle with a dot in the middle, and that is the astrology symbol for the sun. And then underneath that, we have a little green squiggle that represents the mane of a lion, and that is the symbol for Leo. So if you were born when the sun was in Leo, like I was, if you were born the end of July, the beginning of August, you'll be a Leo too. So this is what I would read if I'm reading my horoscope. Now, if you look on the right-hand side, you'll see that there's much, much more information going on there. We've still got our little circle with the dot. So we've still got our symbol for the sun. We've still got our green squiggle that represents Leo, but there's a whole lot more going on. So on the left, we call that sun sign astrology because it's just a tiny little slice of astrology. But as you can see on the right-hand side, the full picture is just much more vast. It's much richer, it's much deeper, it's got much more information. And the most important thing is it's unique to each person. So we've talked about what astrology isn't. So let's get back to the question of what astrology is, particularly psychological astrology, which is my branch of astrology. So to me, it's the alchemy of combining astronomy with mythology to create a symbolic language. And you know, it used to be the case that astronomy and astrology were the same subject, but at some point they diverged, and the poor astronomers get stuck with all the facts and data and all that kind of dry stuff. Whereas lucky astrologers, we still got to keep the basics of astronomy, so the subject's very stimulating to the brain, but we also have the rich storytelling, myths, legends, symbols that so fires up the soul. So let's go back to this astrology chart again. Now, basically, this is just one image that represents the position of the sun and the moon and all the planets at a particular time, at a particular place. And as it happens, this is the time and place when I was born. So if you could understand astrology at the moment, this would give you a window right into my soul. But the great thing about this is just this one image tells a massive story. If I had to describe the story of any chart, I could talk on for hours and hours and hours. And if I had to write down the story, it would run into page after page after page. So all of this information can be summarized in one single image. This is the beauty of this shorthand language. And this is my intention for you. This may look like a whole load of gobbledygook at the moment if you don't know much about astrology, but by the end of this course, you will understand what these symbols mean and you will have a basic grasp of this language. And I would suggest right at the very beginning to make up your own astrology chart. Now, there's lots of apps on the market now where you can do that, or you can go to astro.com and make up your own chart free of charge and use that as you're working through the course. So let's just show you what the different elements here are, 4 different things. So as we said before, we've already identified the symbol that means the sun. We've already identified the symbol that means Leo. This little symbol that looks like a moon, funnily enough, represents the moon. So we're not even through the introduction and you can already understand 3 symbols. So learning the rest of them is going to be a piece of cake. So all of these different symbols here represent different planets. On the outside, the zodiac is a wheel. It's a wheel of 12 different signs. There's 6 pairs of opposites, and we're all a unique mixture of all 12 signs. On the inside, we have all these lines. So there's lots of red lines, and then we have some blue lines. The lines represent the angles that the planets make with each other. The red lines symbolize that the planets are having some sort of friction. There's some sort of challenge between them, whereas the blue lines represent the planets are cooperating. And then we have an inner circle that's numbered 1 to 12. And this represents the houses, and the houses represent different areas of our life. So we're going to use the analogy of a visit to the theatre. And each pillar of psychological astrology represents something that you would see on the stage. So pillar 1, the planets, these are the actors on the stage. These are the characters that make up our personality. The planets are all named after Roman gods, and the Roman gods have certain characteristics. So it's as if our personality was driven by Greek gods or Roman gods, or our life story was driven by them. And I like to think of it as, you know, the old classic films like Jason and the Argonauts, Clash of the Titans, and all the gods were sitting in Olympus viewing the humans and deciding were they going to help them on their journey, or were they going to plant obstacles in their way so that they would teach them their lessons. That's very much what the planets represents. Pillar 2 are the signs, and the signs represent the costumes worn by the actors. What characteristics are they trying to portray? The aspects are the plot between the characters, the direction. These characters are going to work together. These characters are going to be enemies, and there's going to be tension between them. And finally, pillar 4, the houses. These would represent the setting and the scenery, the area where the action is taking place. And finally, I would just like to dedicate this course to my dear friend Judith that we lost in 2025 far too soon. Judith was my first ever student of astrology, and so I'm dedicating this to her, and I hope that she would approve.